It's time for To the Max Sports, where we talk about sports. They're just two guys, Max and Drew, in a bar talking all things sports. Well, without the bar. And the beer. Wait, why aren't we in the bar?
Hello, and welcome to the Max Sports. Y'all know what time it is. It's time for To the Max Sports. Coming to you live from the Flying Whippet Production Studios, just a cannonball shot away from the Alamo in downtown San Antonio.
Which is all being reworked these days.
I saw that. Well, today, to my right, to your video left, we have our NFL draft guru. Screw Mel Kiper. We got the best in the business. Carlos, welcome back.
Hey, Drew. Appreciate the intro. I'm glad to be back. I'm excited. We're a week away from the draft, man.
Yes, sir. Carlos knows everything, man. He knows right down to the cologne they're going to wear when they're up there on that stage. Although I will say, probably the most interesting dressers are probably the NBA guys. You see some wild outfits in the NFL draft, but not like the NBA.
Hey, I like Caitlin Clark wearing her Prada. That was a nice outfit.
Yeah, very elegant. So let's start right away, guys. Couple admin notes. One is we should be here next week, but with Fiesta and the traffic, who knows? Second of all, Bob, before we get into the draft, Porter is gone, as we predicted.
Yep, lifetime ban.
So he will be playing in the China League or probably somewhere in Europe if he's lucky.
And it looks like everything about Shohei is pretty much gone away now that the feds have charged Ipe not only with the $4 million we heard about initially, but basically $16.5 million in theft.
Yep, so those are the two things we've been talking about. Looks like those have wrapped up. Well, let's get right into the draft. Stick around to the end. I have 3 picks in a mock draft that's a little bit different than the regular draft. So stick around to the end of the show for that. Well, Carlos, I was a bit surprised, I got to tell you, that I'm still kind of a Justin Fields fan. He went through a lot of OCs, which is very tough for a young quarterback. I was a bit surprised that Chicago gave up on him, and we're going to see what the results of that obviously are going to be. I think at least he landed in the right spot with Tomlin. Again, I'm talking about Justin Fields. Little stability, hopefully. A place where he can kind of understudy under a veteran in Wilson. But were you a little surprised at the trade, or did you kind of expect that?
Well, definitely expected the trade. I know that the Bears were ready to kind of move on here. You know, not very often that you'll be picking first overall, and I feel like the Bears have kind of missed out on some pretty special quarterbacks.
Because they're idiots.
They are cursed at the moment, but they're looking to break that. But I think for Justin Fields, I think, you know, the value what the Steelers got for him, essentially it's going to be a 6th-round pick.
5th or 6th, yeah.
Yeah, that could potentially be a 4th, but I think you got it for next to nothing. Yeah. I like that.
And, you know, and I have a guy that I listen to, it says, the answer to all your questions is money. And if you look at what they're going to be able to get for a quarterback at number 1 and the money that they're going to save, I mean, as Justin Fields is coming up at the end of his rookie deal, they're going to have to pay him because in the NFL, I don't care how bad your quarterback is, you're paying your starting quarterback. Yeah. So now you got a quarterback on a rookie deal. Let's just ride it out. That's 3 or 4 seasons of salary cap.
I mean, I'm still a fan of his. Like I said, he went through a lot of OCs. He didn't have an offensive line, and we know how that can really hurt a quarterback. And until this year, he finally had some decent receivers. But, you know, it's going to be interesting because could Caleb Williams just be a poor man's Justin Fields?
Yeah, I think, well, the thing about Caleb Williams is you talk about is
and I'm assuming he's going to be your number 1.
Yeah, he's definitely going first off the board for me. I just think you have to think about the upside, you know. Although Justin Fields has not had the opportunities or the people around him, the stability in the franchise, I still think at the end of the day, with 4 seasons under his belt, I don't think the Bears saw enough to continue to try to grow with him. But I think with Caleb Williams, you have some upside. You have potential to possibly change the franchise. The Bears have missed out on guys like Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, even C.J. Stroud last year. So I think they kind of have to go with Caleb Williams and just hope for the best here.
Yeah, but I mean, no matter what happens with the pick, it's the GM's job. It's the front office's job. And quite frankly, I mean, a lot of the chatter is that Caleb Williams may not be the best quarterback in this draft.
There is some chatter, and an interesting stat a lot of people don't realize, when he's pressured, he gets sacked a lot, and that's in college. And with that Bears offensive line, this could be a very, 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 very long season for young Caleb, because he's not going to have a chance to really understudy. They're going to throw him to the fire. Could be a long year, but he's got some athleticism. He definitely has the talent. Will he be able to overcome the adversity? That's the $1 million question. In your eyes, do you think he will be a successful NFL quarterback?
Yeah, I definitely do. I like the tools that he has available. Like you said, I think the biggest thing about Caleb Williams is going to be himself, his attitude, his effort. He's going to have to try to win over a locker room in Chicago. Coming over from California, kind of was the guy. But, I think what people need to not forget is that 2 years ago that Caleb Williams won the Heisman and had a spectacular season. I still think that he has the tools to be successful. He's got everything he needs to be successful. I think he essentially could be, my ceiling for him is kind of like Kyler Murray.
Yeah.
He got good mobility. He's got the ability to make the wow plays. Durability will probably be the biggest concern for him moving forward.
Moving on to number 2, that's the Washington Commanders. Now there's chatter that they may be willing to listen to some folks, but I think most people have them picking the LSU quarterback. Is that where you kind of stand on that?
Yeah, I love
all things being considered.
Yeah, I love Jaden Daniels' game. 6'4", I believe he's 210, a little bit smaller frame, but I think he kind of has the abilities of. I think he has the highest ceiling of all the quarterbacks. Really, you talk about the mobility, RPO, being able to scramble, being able to make off-balance plays.
His fundamentals are great.
Yeah.
I think that's what the pundits are talking about when they put him above Caleb, is that his fundamentals, his foundation, his consistency is off the charts.
Yeah, one of the things that I really like that he does well is his touch with the ball when he goes to the first, second, and third level. He just has really good ball placement, good accuracy, good timing. So I like him. He has the highest ceiling for me, and I think this will be a slam dunk with offensive coordinator Cliff Kingsbury. He's kind of a quarterback guru. So I like him a lot.
Going in at 3, we got the New England Patriots. They're also, some of these teams maybe just talking chatter just to kind of see, get maximum leverage.
Yeah.
They're talking about they're willing to listen to offers. But where do you see the Pats going? Again, that's another quarterback needy team.
Yeah, and I know that the general manager and the whole scouting department, it's a whole new regime right now in New England, so we really don't know what's going to happen for the most part. But I think the biggest thing for the Patriots is they can go one of two ways here. And I think it's either wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr. I think he's the best player on my board right now, is the way I see it. Or you can go quarterback, whether it be J.J. McCarthy, Bo Nix, Michael Penix. Yeah, I just think, going back to Mac Jones' era, this is a guy that had some success in New England, just never had that alpha dominant wide receiver one. And then now you bring in another quarterback to basically the same situation with a lesser offensive line than last year. I think the Patriots will end up going quarterback just because they kind of need a quarterback.
They have to.
Yeah, I can't imagine the franchise not taking a quarterback here in the spot. So I have them taking quarterback Drake May out of North Carolina, 6'4", 230, kind of resembles a lot of what they've seen in the AFC East with Josh Allen. The biggest thing is going to be, he's still 21 years old, so he still has a little bit of room to grow. But I think adding him into this offense, you have a little bit of more big playability here.
Yeah. At 4, I think this one is as obvious as the number one. I would think Arizona finally has that playmaker receiver that Kyler Murray needs, and kid from Ohio State, Harrison, and the pedigree.
Yeah,
I always got to do like a dad, and say this kid's going to have as a Buckeye fan, and I've watched a lot of good receivers, and you've seen them here the last couple of years that have gotten drafted. This kid may be the best of the lot, and that's actually saying a lot. This kid is really, really good.
Yeah, I think, Marvin Jones is slam dunk Marvin Harrison Jr. for the Arizona Cardinals. Absolute slam dunk. I think you kind of, run in the car to, elect the pick and stuff like that. So, but Marvin Harrison, 6'4", 220, I believe he is, can run every route on the field, play different positions, X, Y, and Z. The pedigree, the speed, size kind of reminds me a little bit of AJ Green a little bit. And the Arizona Cardinals have a need for a wide receiver. They lose Marquise Brown to the Kansas City Chiefs. Your number one wide receiver right now is Michael Wilson, who was a young up-and-coming player. But I think Marvin Harrison Jr., you have your next Larry Fitzgerald for the next 10-plus years and stuff like that.
Yeah, and, there were some games last year where the Cardinals actually played above their pay grade.
Yeah.
And so now, their running back's a beast, and now they have Harrison out there on the wing, so I'm assuming.
Yeah, they still have tight end Trey McBurton.
Right, they'll have Murray back for a full season, so some exciting things coming the Cardinal Nation way. Chargers, this is where things could get interesting. This is where I would think if there's going to be a trade up or down, this will probably a trade down. Actually, this would be the one with the new regime here.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for the Chargers now that they have a new regime, they have a lot of holes that they need to fill on this roster.
Actually, did we miss Minnesota?
No, because that's the projected trade that the Vikings are going to come up to 5.
Yeah,
gotcha.
Yeah. So, like I said, for the Chargers, I think if they stay here put at 5, I think they have a lot of really nice options. You talk about Joe Alt, the offensive tackle out of Notre Dame. I really like him a lot. You have him, Rashawn Slater, Justin Herbert. You want to make sure that Justin Herbert's protected, and you have 2 offensive tackles that you would probably have for the next 10-plus years.
They've lost some quality receivers.
Yeah, definitely.
So could this be where one of the receivers goes off the board?
Yeah, you can look at a couple different guys. It's just kind of about what you feel fits your offense the most. You have Rome Odunze out of Washington.
Neighbors.
Malik Neighbors out of LSU could be really special here as well. So
yeah, but is this a situation where Harbaugh comes in and gets more draft capital to get other players to start building a team that he crafted?
Correct. And the reason why I believe, and I think a lot of people believe that there's going to be a trade here in this spot is Jim Harbaugh. I think, he has all the right intentions, but he's kind of been hyping up J.J. McCarthy over the last couple of weeks, and I think the buzz is really starting to amp up. We've seen this before with, Trey Lance, Zach Wilson, and, Jim Harbaugh's also gone on the record and said that he would take him first overall if he could. So, Jim Harbaugh, I think he kind of knows what he's doing. I'm sure he means well, and he loves J.J. McCarthy, but let's not forget that Jim Harbaugh is a quarterback whisperer, so there could be some truth to this, but I think there's a trade here at the spot.
Yeah, the interesting thing for J.J. McCarthy is looking at what he did, after the season was over, he really wasn't asked to do all that much as a quarterback in Michigan. So how do you evaluate him? The pro day, all of that stuff, did that really bolster him? Now, did say about 2 months ago that he was going the top half of the draft. And everyone looked at me like I was a crazy man. And I'm even crazier now.
I think he slides. I think there's probably 4 that go ahead of him, but I think the NFL loves size, and he's 6'6". If he was 6'2", 6'3", we wouldn't even be having this conversation. But because of the size of the man at 6'6", that's something that is definitely going to have some NFL teams taking a second look and saying, hey, he can look over these O-lines, and, he comes from good pedigree being Michigan, and Harbaugh being a former quarterback. So is the NFL ready? Well, we'll find out.
If we saw the pizza place downstairs, I'd take you up on a pizza slice on this one.
I say forego before McCarthy. probably wrong. I usually am. The only person worse at me than picking people is Mel Kiper.
He's just like us. That's the way I see it.
Let's see. Take on Mel Kiper, whose ESPN salary is a lot more than ours.
Yeah, he has worse picks than Jim Cramer does, and if Jim Cramer gives you a stock run. The Chargers.
Yes.
Talked about them.
Yeah.
Got them, the Giants, next on the board.
Yeah, and I think this has got to be, I know there's been some talk about quarterback, but I think at the end of the day, Daniel Jones is making too much money to sit on the bench right now. And I think Brian Dable, the head coach for the Giants, might be feeling a little bit of pressure. So there needs to be some type of success. And, going back to the Patriots situation, you want to make sure that your quarterback has weapons, an alpha number one wide receiver, and I think they go wide receiver here.
I do too. I think they'd be thrilled if Neighbors was still on the board.
Yeah, absolutely.
At that point,
I have them going with Neighbors. 6 foot, I think 213 pounds. Has great speed, can separate well. I think he's perfect to make big plays in New York. And, the Giants haven't had a number one wide receiver since, 2013, Odell Beckham. So now I think they go back to the well of wide receivers and go get an LSU wide receiver in Malik Neighbors.
They have a lot of needs, but receivers probably the biggest at this point. Another interesting team here. Gosh, they could go a million different ways. O-line, maybe a running back at this point due to the age of theirs, Henry. Henry's still with him, right?
No, Henry was with the Baltimore Ravens.
That's right. Now, so there we go.
Yeah. So for the Titans, I mean, the running back question, they brought in Tony Pollard, former Cowboy. They've done a really good job in this offseason of just adding skill players on offense and defense. They brought in Calvin Ridley from Jacksonville, an in-rival team. I like that. They've also brought in L'Jarius Sneed from the Kansas City Chiefs. They got him for a third-round pick. So I think the Titans, under new head coach Brian Callahan of the former offensive coordinator for the Cincinnati Bengals, I think they go into the trenches. The offensive line has been an issue over the last couple of years. I mean, even last year, the Titans took offensive guard Peter Skoronski, 11th overall. He's been really solid. Yeah. They have a hole at left tackle, and I think this is where they go with Joe Alt out of Notre Dame.
Yeah, solid.
I mean, I think Joe Alt in a lot of different drafts would be a guy you'd consider with the first or second overall pick, if not for all these quarterbacks. Joe Alt out of Notre Dame, I think he's going to be a perfect fit in New York. Tennessee, perfect way to start your regime by protecting your quarterback in Will Levis. My player comparison, I think, might be a little lofty, but I think it's fair as Joe Thomas of the Cleveland Browns. I think he's going to be solid for years to come.
Then we move on to a team that broke my heart last year because every time I bet them, they lost, even though they've got the offensive talent. We're talking about the Atlanta Falcons. They got that two-headed Hydra monster running back tandem. Yep. They got Drake London that they drafted last year. Their tight end, Pitts. They finally got a quarterback now that, say what you will about him, the guy can put up some really good numbers, albeit coming off an Achilles injury. So, and 33, 34 years old now with Cousins. I look to them to go defense. They need to shore up some of that defense. Is that where you're at with them?
Yeah, I agree. This is a offense that's locked and loaded. They're ready to go. I think Kirk Cousins is really going to be able to unlock this offense, with guys like Kyle Pitts and Drake London, Bijan, of course. Offensive line, they have a great unit up front. So looking at the defensive side, this is a unit that has progressively gotten better under new head coach Raheem Morris, a defensive-minded coach. I think they go address the edge position. They could go corner, but I think edge is more of a need. This is a team that has failed to really get after quarterbacks, and they need those game-changing plays, the strip, sack, fumble type of thing. And
anybody you have in mind at that line?
Well, the interesting thing about the edge position this year is there's not one stud alpha guy right now. It's just kind of what fits your system. What do you like? And I think, for me, my favorite edge rusher will be Latu out of UCLA, but I think Dallas Turner, the edge rusher out of Alabama, is going to be the first.
Most of them have him on the board.
Yeah, I think he has a higher ceiling. His athleticism is insane. You talk about a freak athlete. Runs in the sub 4.4s, 6'3", 247, has the pass rush and, has the ability to help stop the run, create leverage. And I think he's going to be a really good fit in Atlanta as they try to build this defense up.
And then rounding out the top 10, we got the Bears again, the Bears.
Yeah, so the Bears.
Can the front office managed to screw this up?
Yeah, the Bears at pick number 9, they can go a number of different ways. I think the 2 positions for them that I see that they could go after is, well, I guess 3 really. You could add an offensive lineman here. You could go wide receiver. But I think at the end of the day, you got to go look at the defensive end position. You've done a great job in bringing in talent in DJ Moore and Keenan Allen.
Sweat, who they traded for.
Yeah, DeAndre Swift that came in as well. So looking at the defensive side of the ball, the Chicago Bears 2 years ago had 20 sacks and were last in the league. This year they improved by getting to 31 sacks, but they were still second to last in the NFL in sacks. So their leading sack man, Montez Sweat, had, I believe, 6 sacks in about 9 games, and they still need more production opposite of him. So for the Chicago Bears, I have going edge, and I think a really good fit would be edge rusher Jared Verse out of Florida State. You talk about a guy who has speed and power. His bull rush ability is really phenomenal. Kind of reminds me a little bit of a bigger, less athletic, by a small margin, Will Anderson Jr. of the Houston Texans. And, kind of following that blueprint for the Houston Texans, they took CJ Stroud, they took Will Anderson, 2 blue chip players to kind of, have the change that they did last year. And I think the Chicago Bears have to be looking at that and say, hey, we have a really good defense. Let's make it an elite defense here that we can help build on the other side of the ball opposite of Caleb Williams in this offense.
Yeah, and conversely, some mock drafts have them going receiver so that, their number 1 has a chance to pitch a few more balls out there.
Yeah.
The kid from Washington.
Yeah, Roma Dunze, 6'3", 212. The comps for him have kind of been a bigger Deontay Johnson. I think he has great route running ability. The problem for him is going to be kind of like, reminds me a little bit of Quentin Johnston of last year in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
Bigger body guy. They have problem maybe creating space, but I think he's going to be really good in 50-50 ball situations. You can line him up in several different spots. And I think, him, Roma Dunze, Keenan Allen, you have DJ Moore, Cole Kmet, Gerald Everett, DeAndre Swift, Khalil Herbert. This is a really good-looking offense. It's going to be interesting to see how it all would come together. That would be the only thing for me. But I think offensive coordinator Shane Waldron will this is going to be kind of a run-first team, too.
The pieces are falling into place for Chicago. Hopefully they won't find a way to screw it up. And then rounding out, my apologies. Yeah, Bob's not a fan of the general management.
Well, no, I mean, the front office of the Chicago Bears has been a den of ineptness.
Yeah, it really has. Rounding out the 10, my apologies, I said that earlier, are the football New York Jets.
Yeah. So the Jets are not any, mystery to be picking in the top 10. They've been kind of doing this for a while, but these are a little bit different circumstances. Looking at the Jets and what they've done this offseason, I love the things that they've done. They've been super aggressive in adding protection for Aaron Rodgers, who's coming off a torn Achilles. They've added Tyron Smith, another former Cowboy of mine. They've added 2 offensive linemen from the Baltimore Ravens and John Simpson and Morgan Moses. So, although the offensive line could still be a problem, the age and injuries, I think they've done a good job in solidifying that group. So I think here at pick 9, I could see the Jets wanting to trade back. They are a team that doesn't have a pick in the second round. But I think you got to go, tight end Brock Bowers here or get another wide receiver for Aaron Rodgers and just to add to this offense,
Yeah.
And I personally, for me, it makes sense to go Brock Bowers. But, a couple of reasons why I don't think they're going to go Brock Bowers is just because Aaron Rodgers in the past, even from his time in Green Bay, hasn't utilized the tight end position as a receiving threat. And 2, I think they like Tyler Conklin. Like I said earlier, I think he kind of fits the role of Robert Tonyan, a really good blocking tight end and a guy who's an effective pass catcher. So I think here's where I see Roma Dunze out of Washington going. You pair him up with, Garrett Wilson. We don't know what the injuries, issues, concern will be with Mike Williams, who they brought in.
Mm-hmm.
I still think they need some depth pieces along in that offense.
Yeah.
But what are the chances that Aaron Rodgers influences this and they go really off the board and select Kennedy in with the 10th pick?
Yeah.
It's a bad political reference joke.
Yeah, they can go a number of different ways.
Yeah, I mean, the Jets are their defense is definitely Super Bowl ready.
Yeah.
You know, and now we just got.
Really? Really?
Oh, yeah.
After last season?
Yes.
Really?
Yes, absolutely.
I'll take that. Yeah. But
this is a really good defense last year. Yeah. And they also did bring in a Hassan Reddick from the Philadelphia Eagles for a second-round pick. I think that was an absolute steal. They have such a deep group at the pass rush position. You have Jermaine Johnson, John Franklin Myers, Hassan Reddick, and you still have last year's first-round pick in Will McDonald, the fourth.
And who was the kid, the defensive back?
They also have Quentin Williams in the middle of this defensive line. They have Sauce Gardner.
Sauce Gardner, that was solid.
Yeah, I think, this is a really good defense, so I think they got to go
I think they'll go offensive heavy, definitely.
The Jets suck.
So we don't want to go through the entire draft. That may take too long, but let's do the Texas teams. What your thoughts are on them?
Yeah.
The offseason changes they made, trades and whatnot, and then we'll talk about my Bengals and wrap it up.
Yeah.
Houston looks like they really do you think they traded down losing Singletary for Mixon, or is that veteran presence going to be okay for them?
Well, I think, Joe Mixon, his production, he's a guy who's been able to stay healthy. I think him in the passing game is going to give them a really big dimension to add to this offense. And then, two, I think he's a way better pass blocker than Devin Singletary is, which is, I think, another thing we have to think about. Those small little things that we want to make sure that the Texans are going to get better this year. Joe Mixon, I love the addition, and they really got him for pretty much next to nothing. They did have to pay him, but, Joe Mixon, as you know, super viable. This is a guy who's had 1,000-yard seasons. He's really good in the pass game, so I think it's
tough as nails.
Yeah.
I mean, he'll level an NFL linebacker if you give him a chance.
So true or false? Best team in Texas?
Oh, by far.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean.
Yes, brother. Yeah, I don't know if you guys.
I'm excited for this Houston team this year. I mean, they've added so many weapons for the young quarterback Stroud, and I can see them. They probably need an edge guy. They need some defensive help.
Yeah, definitely.
But the offense is looking. I mean, those young receivers are coming back. I know one coming off an injury, but
Tank Dell. Yeah.
But hey, they're solid.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch Houston this year. I think Houston is absolutely on the rise. CJ Stroud moving into year 2. You bring in Stephon Diggs. You look at what Stephon Diggs did for Josh Allen and his development, and I think,
add to that receiver core already.
Yeah, Nico Collins. I mean, wide receiver 1. I think he's definitely one of those young up and coming wide receivers. Tank Dell before the injury last year was on a special season, so. Dalton Schultz, another former Cowboy of mine, had a great year as well. I think very underrated tight end, but
look out if they had some defensive pieces.
Yeah, it's going to be they're going to be really fun to watch. This AFC South is really going to be interesting this year, I think, too.
Finally.
Now, the other team that's on the decline, Dallas Cowboys. What are their needs besides quarterback?
Man, it's just
quarterback, coach, general manager, owner.
Yeah.
Culture.
Yeah. Yeah,
they'll need a new stadium.
No, I mean,
tough.
I'm going to say it over and over and over again as we roll into the season. They're going to do the same thing. They're going to roll it back. They're going to get the same result. They're going to be out in the first week of the playoffs. Boom. We're done.
Yeah.
What are their needs and who do you see them?
Oh, man. The problem for the Cowboys is...
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
I was just thinking out loud. The defense is viable.
Yeah.
Although they shit the bed a couple times, but when they played well, they did play really well.
They need a running game.
They need everything.
They need a running game. They need a running game. That is the only way to make Prescott effective. They need a running game.
But do you take a running back in the first round? I don't think so.
Yeah, especially with this year's class, there's not that Bijan Robinson. There's not that Jahmyr Gibbs, that guy who's just going to absolutely be, a generational type running back. There's really not even a consensus like number one overall running back. You know, you have a cluster of guys that do things very differently. A lot of guys I'm looking at don't have a lot of college experience. You know, Jonathan Brooks is coming off a torn ACL.
But I mean,
what if you get a
but running backs in the NFL are like, power tools at the Home Depot.
Yeah.
You just go to the next one. Yeah. Get a line, beef up that O-line.
Well, they got to replace Martin. He's 33 now?
Yeah. The offensive line.
I'd probably take the best available O-line guy.
Yeah, they lost a couple of guys on offense. You know, you lose Tyron Smith, the left tackle. You know, I know that they have Tyler Smith, who they're probably going to move out to left tackle, but now you have a hole at left guard. They lost their center, Tyler Biadasz, to the rival Washington Commanders. So I think in the first round, definitely offensive line. There's going to be some options there that they can go with. Me personally, I think they're going to go with C.J. Latham out of Alabama if he's available. I think this guy's a monster of a human being. I think he's a guy that, you know, maybe we can have him play left guard, left tackle, Tyler Smith, slide in and out on that spot. But essentially, it's just to replace our right tackle, Terrence Steele, who's struggled over the last couple of years. Zach Martin, like you said, is getting up there in age. That's another issue. But as far as the Cowboys on defense, you know, I think the scheme is going to help them all a lot better. They bring in Mike Zimmer, you know, former head coach for the Minnesota Vikings.
Great defensive mind.
Yeah, I think he has a lot of experience. You know, the Cowboys didn't lose any major key players. They did lose a lot of depth and rotation. That's the one thing I'm worried about. And, you know, like you said, they need to figure out a way to stop the run because they didn't bring anybody else in. They brought in Eric Kendricks, the linebacker, but, you know, we need to see more from Mozzie Smith this year. I think he's got to have a big jump this year if the Cowboys want to go anywhere. And like I said, you know, Philadelphia just got, you know, they reloaded on offense. You know, the Giants, I think, are going to be a lot better with Daniel Jones playing this year. And the Washington Commanders with Dan Quinn, they're going to be tough. They're going to be tough. They're not going to lie down and quit. They're going to, you know, they're going to give the Cowboys a lot of work this year. So Cowboys have not done a lot. I'm not too worried because the main pieces are there, but, you know, the main pieces got to play big. And this draft, the Cowboys have just, they've hit in the first and second round. They've just failed in the last couple of rounds.
Yeah.
You know, their tight end last year, they took in the second round, only played, I think, 15 snaps all year, you know, and we have Jake
was a miss.
Yeah. So,
well, I think they were, I think Buffalo did that end around on them last year. Who's that tight end that they grabbed? Buffalo's.
Oh, Dalton Kincaid.
Yeah, I think they had their eye on him, and Buffalo just kind of jumped in there and sniped him. But at 18, my Bengals. Interesting offseason. They picked up some O-line additions to help Burrows out, which I like.
Yeah.
We probably do need an edge rusher. Getting another receiver at some point in case we lose Higgins. We picked up the Colts running back, who I really like.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on the Bengals?
Yeah, so, you know, with the Bengals, I like what they've done this offseason. I know you lose Joe Mixon, but bringing in Zach Moss, I think he's a really good pass-blocking running back as well. He's a physical runner. I think they like Chase Hill. I believe he was a fourth or fifth round pick last year out of Illinois. He had some flashy plays last year. On offense, you know, with it, T. Higgins hopefully anticipating to get a deal, hopefully will be a Bengal. If they decide to move on, I do want to say a guy that I like maybe in the later rounds, a local product here at UTSA, Deorian Clark, 6'3", ran a 4.45. You know, he's really good after the catch. He's really good with 50-50 balls. He's a guy that I really like for the Bengals maybe to attack later in the draft. But yeah, I definitely think a fun pick for me, like I told you earlier, would be tight end Brock Bowers. If you bring him in, Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, what a offense they would have, you know, and I think they have the draft capital to do so. They have 9 picks in the draft, 2 in the third round. I think they can try to slide up a little bit if Brock Bowers was to fall outside the top 10, but defensive line would be another issue to address for sure.
Yeah, they got some issues there. Well, you think about it, you know, your top tier teams, usually you're talking about a quality tight end whenever you're talking about your top tier teams. So to be able to snag a Bowers by maybe moving up a little bit, or maybe in that position, they'll just go for the best available.
Yeah, yeah.
Despite the position, if they stay at 18, if Hiromi Amaduzzo slides, something like that.
Yeah, that would be interesting. You know, a lot could happen in the draft. You know, T. Higgins could be one of those guys that does get drafted on draft day. You know, maybe the first day, the second day, but yeah, I think you know, going back to
T. Higgins. You mean?
Yeah, T. Higgins. I still think there's a possibility he could get traded. You know,
okay,
on
that's what you're
draft
saying.
day.
Okay.
Yeah, but going back to Brock Bowers. I'm sorry. You know, you saw the tight end success for rookies last year with Dalton Kincaid, Sam Laporta. I think Brock Bowers, you know, he's a plug and play. The tight end position's kind of been a little iffy over the last couple of years for the Cincinnati Bengals. And I think this offense would be, you know, arguably one of the best in the league.
Yeah. So, folks, we've covered it. I did say I was going to give you my top 3. So I don't know if this has been done before, Bob, but I am going to give you my draft of the top 3 coolest names in this year's draft. Starting off at number 3, Jackson Powers. That's my number 3 cool name in this draft.
Yeah.
Are you just picking names of players that could see a career in a certain sort of film industry?
Jackson.
If they don't make it in the NFL, maybe porn will call. You never know.
Well, you know what Brock Purdy's nickname is, right?
What's that?
Big C word, Brock.
I call him Brick Purdy.
Anyway, what's your number 2?
Number 2, Chop Robinson.
What a name.
Chop Robinson.
Wait.
You know that guy plays defense.
Yeah.
Or is he an offensive lineman who does a lot of chop blocks?
Let's hope not, because I think the NFL changed the rules on some kind of blocking technique.
No, not chop blocks, on tackles.
Yeah,
on hip rotation
hip
tackles.
rotation. And my number 1 pick in this year's cool name draft, Kool-Aid McKinstry.
That's not a real name. That's not a real name.
That's his real name?
That is his real name.
Kool-Aid McKinstry. This year's number 1.
We would like to see
cool
the birth
pick
certificate
name,
just for fun, but, you know, yeah.
Okay.
Anything else before we wrap up? Can we have you back after the draft to talk about the hits and misses?
Oh, we're definitely going to be breaking it all down. I mean, I'm working right now on a mock draft 2.0. And then this weekend, hopefully I'll be working on a second round and third round. That should be fun. You know, going down a rabbit hole of players and names and stuff like that is always fun. So I'll definitely be back.
Give a shout out to your show.
Yeah, so if you guys don't know, I have a podcast. It's the Go for Two podcast, where I basically break down everything that happens in season and during the off season, especially. So definitely, if you are a fanatic, definitely check it out.
All right, Bob.
Okay.
Well, everyone have a happy Fiesta. It kicks off, I believe, tonight.
I hate Fiesta.
With Fiesta. I won't be attending, but I'll be watching on my TV from afar.
Yeah.
Until next week, OH.
Peace out.
IO.